Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Absolutely.
This time we're strapping on our civic hats and diving headfirst into the minutes from two Springfield City Commission meetings
Oh, wow.
from May 7th and 21st.
Okay.
I'm joined, as always, by our resident expert in all things local government. You ready to uncover what really went down in those meetings?
Absolutely. City commission meetings might not sound like the most thrilling thing,
Yeah.
but they're actually where the rubber meets the road when it comes to decisions that directly impact your daily life.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
We're talking about things like budgets, zoning changes, community initiatives, like the nuts and bolts of how Springfield functions.
Exactly. And by examining these minutes, we can get a real sense of the city's priorities, the concerns of its residents, and the challenges it faces.
So think of it like this. We're giving you the VIP backstage pass to how Springfield operates. No need to sift through pages of jargon. We've got you covered.
And I got my highlight already.
Yeah.
Shall we start with the May 7th meeting?
Let's do it. First up, we've got an update on the construction of Fire Station #6 on South Charleston Pike.
Ah, yes. A crucial piece of infrastructure for public safety. It looks like the commission approved what's called a change order for the project.
Now, for those of us who aren't construction gurus, what does that actually mean?
Basically, a change order is a modification to the original construction contract. It could be anything from an adjustment to the timeline to an alteration in the design plans, often due to unforeseen circumstances or necessary adjustments discovered during the building process.
So it doesn't necessarily mean anything's gone wrong, just that things need to be tweaked as the project progresses.
Precisely. It's quite common with large-scale projects like this.
Makes sense. Now, switching gears a bit, we also see that the commission approved a $1,000 contribution to Gammon House for their Juneteenth and Fatherfest celebration.
Gammon House is a true gem in Springfield, with its rich history tied to the Underground Railroad. It's fantastic to see the city supporting their efforts to commemorate Juneteenth and celebrate fathers within the community.
Absolutely. But what I found interesting here is that this contribution sparked a discussion about how the city determines how much to give to different organizations. It's like trying to decide which charities to support with your own money. You have to balance your priorities and resources.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights the complex decisions that go into resource allocation at the city level. The city manager explained that they typically base these contributions on an organization's funding requests, while also considering the overall budget allocated for such donations. It's a delicate balancing act.
For sure. It's about making sure that taxpayer dollars are being used responsibly and strategically to support a diverse range of community needs.
Precisely. And speaking of community events, it looks like the Kiwanis Club of Springfield also received a contribution, a cool $5,000, for the 2024 Springfield Jazz and Blues Fest.
Music to my ears. This piqued my interest because it seems to speak to a broader effort on the city's part to invest in arts and culture. It's not just about infrastructure and basic services, it's about creating a vibrant and enriching community for residents and visitors alike.
It's a savvy move, really. Supporting the arts not only enhances the quality of life, but can also boost tourism and economic development. It's a win-win.
Agreed. Now, before we move on to the May 21st meeting, let's talk about a less glamorous but equally important issue: technology.
Ah, yes, the often overlooked backbone of any modern city.
Exactly. It looks like the commission recognized the increasing need for data storage, particularly for police evidence, and approved the purchase of new server and storage hardware.
This is a critical investment in the efficiency and effectiveness of law enforcement. As you can imagine, digital evidence, body camera footage, photos, interrogation recordings is central to many investigations, and it requires a massive amount of secure storage space.
That makes sense. It's not just about having the technology to collect the data, but also the capacity to store it securely and access it when needed.
Right. And it's not just about today's data. They need to think long-term. Data storage needs are only going to grow more complex as technology advances.
And it's not just about today's data. They need to think long-term data storage needs are only going to grow more complex as technology advances.
Absolutely. It's a smart move to stay ahead of the curve on this.
All right, so let's move on to the May 21st meeting, where things get a little more, shall we say, lively.
Lively is one way to put it. It seems the public comment portion of this meeting was particularly noteworthy.
Indeed. But before we dive into the public's concerns, let's touch on a couple of other key items from the agenda. First up, we've got zoning changes, paving the way for a new assisted living facility on North Belmont Avenue and East Home Road.
This sparked a really interesting discussion about the growing need for senior housing options in Springfield. It's a trend we're seeing across the country as the baby boomer generation ages.
Right, and it's not just about assisted living facilities. It's about creating a range of options to meet the diverse needs of seniors who want to stay in their communities.
Exactly. From independent living apartments to in-home care services, it's about giving seniors choices and allowing them to age gracefully in place.
Well said. Now let's talk about something that affects everyone, employee benefits. There was both good news and bad news on that front.
The good news is that dental insurance was renewed with no premium increase.
Yeah.
Always a win for employees.
Especially in this day and age, right? Anytime we can dodge a rate hike, it feels like a victory.
Absolutely. However, the bad news is that medical insurance saw a significant jump, a whopping 16% increase.
Ouch. That's gotta sting. And it naturally led to a broader discussion about the rising cost of healthcare nationwide.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, unfortunately, but it's something that city governments have to grapple with when budgeting for employee benefits.
For sure. It's all connected, isn't it? National trends playing out in our own backyard.
Speaking of connections, the Commission also approved agreements for school resource officers, SROs, in both city schools and Clark State College, which brings up another multifaceted issue.
Yeah, the role of SROs in schools is a topic that often sparks debate. Some see it as a necessary measure to ensure safety and security, while others worry about the potential for over-policing and the impact on school climate.
It's about finding that delicate balance, as with so many things. The Commission's discussion seemed to reflect that nuanced perspective, emphasizing the multifaceted role these officers play.
Right, it's not just about being a security presence. Ideally, they're also mentors, counselors, and positive role models for the students.
Exactly. They can act as liaisons between law enforcement and the school community, helping to build trust and understanding.
Okay, so we've covered construction, senior living, healthcare costs, and school safety, all in a day's work for the City Commission.
It's a glimpse into the vast scope of issues they handle. But things took a particularly interesting turn during the public comment period of this May 21st meeting, where residents had the floor to voice their concerns directly to their elected officials.
And boy, did they ever. We're about to dive into some real talk about the issues that matter most to Springfield residents, from immigration to housing costs to overcrowding. Get ready to hear it straight from the source. So let's unpack these public comments. One resident expressed concern about the city's ability to provide adequate services, given the influx of immigrants to Springfield.
This is a concern we often see in communities experiencing demographic shifts. It speaks to a very real fear that resources might be stretched too thin.
Right, and this resident specifically suggested that immigrants were receiving more benefits than longtime residents. How common is that perception, and what's the reality of the situation?
It's important to approach this with nuance. Access to social services is determined by a complex web of federal, state, and local regulations, not just city-level decisions. While perceptions of inequity can arise, it's crucial to separate those perceptions from the legal framework governing these programs.
That's a really important point. It's easy to jump to conclusions, but the reality is often far more complex. Now, another resident raised the issue of rising rental costs, connecting it directly to the influx of immigrants. They seem to be saying that landlords are increasing rents because they know immigrants will pay them, leaving longtime residents struggling to stay in their homes.
This touches on the incredibly complex issue of housing affordability, which many cities are grappling with. While it's difficult to pinpoint a single cause for rising rents, it's essential to acknowledge the very real anxiety and displacement these increases cause for many residents.
Absolutely. It's one thing to talk about economic trends in the abstract, but it's another thing entirely when you're facing eviction because you can no longer afford your rent.
Precisely. It becomes deeply personal, and understandably so.
Now, it's worth noting that the Commission did push back on the idea that immigrants are solely responsible for rising rents. Commissioner Brown reminded everyone that the United States was founded by immigrants, emphasizing the need for a more inclusive perspective.
It was a powerful reminder of the historical and social context surrounding immigration debates. And Commissioner Houston added that the challenges Springfield faces, like the police staffing shortage mentioned earlier, are not unique. Cities across the country are competing for qualified applicants, so it's not just about local factors at play.
It's about connecting the dots, right? Recognizing those larger trends and how they influence local dynamics.
Exactly. And speaking of connecting the dots, let's touch on one last public comment that caught my attention. A resident raised concerns about overcrowding in certain residences, even providing specific addresses for the Commission to investigate.
This highlights a crucial aspect of local government, its role in code enforcement and public safety.
Absolutely. Overcrowding can pose serious risks, from fire hazards to sanitation issues. It's encouraging to see residents taking an active role in reporting these concerns.
Right, and it reinforces the idea that civic engagement is a two-way street. It's not just about residents showing up to meetings, it's about the commission being responsive to those concerns and taking action.
Well said. This deep dive into Springfield City Commission meetings has revealed not only the decisions being made, but also the diverse voices shaping the city's future.
We've heard from city officials, but we've also heard directly from the residents most impacted by those decisions.
It's a powerful reminder that local government is not some abstract entity. It's a reflection of the community it serves.
And ultimately, it's up to all of us, residents and officials alike, to shape the future of Springfield. What happens next is in our hands.
So as you go about your week, think about what resonated with you from these meetings. What sparked your curiosity? What concerns do you share?
Because the minutes are just the starting point. What actions will you take to make your voice heard and contribute to the community you want to see?
That's the real question, isn't it?
Until next time, keep asking those questions and keep diving deeper into the issues that matter most to you.